Welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about self-destruction, specifically about escapism and addiction. So I've already kind of discussed a little bit about escapism as far as it isn't inherently bad. I think all of us, even before tragedy, seek to escape from, I'll say, the monotony, but yeah, just kind of live in somewhat of a fantasy world. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. But really, where escapism can become dangerous is when it starts to take control of our lives. And for somebody who's been through a traumatic event, escapism can be extremely dangerous because naturally we just don't want to have the problems in our lives. We don't want to have that pain. We don't want to have that reality. And so if we start trying to fill our reality with different forms of escapism, the desire to live in reality becomes less and less. And that's where we really can become our own worst enemy, where we can magnify the pain that's been inflicted on us to the point where we just give up. And so fortunately, I never really got into a specific addiction. But one thing I realized that I was addicted to was escapism. And the reason being was, as I said in the video about my pain, that was the first reaction I had once I realized my brother had been killed, was to escape that reality and just try to drown it out with just having fun and amusement with my friends and my girlfriend, and not really focus on what that was meant to me, and more into just kind of a superficial desire just to be happy now, because as I said, it just became more and more difficult for me to be genuinely happy with life, and that, like I said, is the reason it became so difficult was because I wasn't aware of my addiction to escapism. The first few years after my brother was killed, my escapism came in the form of alcohol. Fortunately enough, it didn't get to the point where I compromised my job or my relationships, but it was a sense of I drank quite a bit to the point where I would black out and forget things, and a lot of times it was just kind of that camaraderie type getting drunk, and then a lot of times that actually turned it into me feeling my pain, which I just drowned it in it, so to speak. I usually ended up every single time I would get drunk, I would just wallow in my sorrow. My eyes would be filled with tears, and I would just feel lost again, which because of that, because it was intensified with alcohol, I just felt more need to escape. And so it was just kind of a vicious cycle of being happy now and being miserable later, which made me want to just be happy now again. And as the years went by, I actually got into pills. And it wasn't anything where I sought them out, but I had just kind of a casual friend who offered me them one night when we were drinking, and me being in that just kind of go with it mood from the alcohol. I took it. I had no idea what it was. And it came a point where I kind of looked forward to seeing that specific friend, because it took that much more off, and it was able to help me escape more. And so as the years went by, it really kind of made me get to a point where I didn't really move forward with my life. And unfortunately enough, after a few years after my brother was killed, I kind of became aware of what I was doing, and I slowed it down. That was one thing I didn't realize, was that I thought that if I was vigilant and made sure that I didn't take pills, and that I kept my drinking in check, that I was okay. But I didn't really think about what was causing me to have that pattern of behavior. And that's one of the things too, is as time went on, my escapism took new forms. I would eat a lot. I would just check out. I would play video games, watch movies. My escapism took another form, but it wasn't the same form, and so I didn't identify it. And so that started derailing my progress in life. And that's one thing I realized was that it really wasn't a matter of the substance that I was partaking in, the escapism, the form of escapism I was partaking in. It was just more the mindset of what I was doing. And that's, to me, I think that unchecked escapism, especially with immense pain that you're dealing with, to me, that's what actually leads to addictions. Not saying that I've never been in any type of addiction treatment, so I don't know exactly how they address it all. But my wife is really into shows like what the heck is it? Interventions and such. And as one I was watching was I realized that when these people with addictions were being confronted, I just didn't really agree with how it was being done. And it wasn't just a matter of like, obviously their family members and such were trying to help them. They were trying to just kind of push them with immense emotion to get them to face the reality and change. But the thing I felt was the misstep was the fact that they were all identifying the substance that was being abused as the source of their pain, the source of their I'd say unraveling. When the fact of the matter is I think it was their mental state and the fact that they didn't feel emotionally strong enough to deal with their pain, and so they would just use drugs to check out, or alcohol, or whatever. And that's really, to me, I think that the first thing that we need to do when we're addressing our addictions is first address our mental health, address why we're trying to escape. Because I feel like once you get a grasp on why you're trying to escape and what the end game is, you can really feel a little more in control of your mind and in control of your emotions. And I feel like that taking control of your emotions is going to make it far more easier. It's not going to make it easy, but it's going to make it far more easier to kick addictions, because you know why you're kicking them. You know what the thought path, the thought process is of why you're trying to get your next fix, or why you're trying to get really drunk. Is that once you understand your motives, then I feel like there's a certain point where I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to cut loose and maybe be a little buzzed, as long as the situation's safe. But the real idea is just to be conscious of what you're doing when you're in a clear state of mind, so that you don't do something you regret. Because I feel like those actions of regret are what leads to continuous abuse, continuous desire to escape. That was one of the things I found interesting. Was I just thought it was kind of weird that when you see these interventions, all the loved ones are around them, and they're saying, you're destroying us, you're making us all sad, we can't see you do this. And I feel like, well, a lot of that I'm sure that the person who's addicted, who's being confronted, is aware of. That's probably one of the reasons why they seek that escapism, that they're not wanting to see the damage that they're doing. And so I feel like that kind of pressure and that kind of announcing something that the person who's addicted is hurting them, it's just giving them more reasons to want to escape. Once they go away from that emotional high of everyone crying and everyone saying, we want you to be happy, we want you to be functioning, they go away and they get back into their head. And I think one of the first things they're going to want to do is escape, because that emotional high is gone. That emotional draw for correcting their life is gone, and then they're just back into their pain world, which is just going to want to push them back to their addiction. So while I'm not saying that how it's processed is completely wrong, I'm just saying that I feel like if we identify the mental damage and the demons, and slowly work on those and chip at those, and give people more control over their mental state, I feel like they'll be far better suited to correct those errors in their life, and realize that I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with escapism, but to me it's just the nature of why you're trying to escape that people need to be vigilant about. If it's the weekend and your kids have a babysitter or whatever, and you just want to unwind with your spouse, your significant other, your partner, your friends, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think it's extremely important to look at the surroundings of where you're at when you're trying to escape. I don't think you should try to escape if you're doing a family event, or if you're going out with your kids or whatever. I think there's certain events where your escapism can be extremely damaging and very hostile to your relationships. And to me, at least, when I felt like I was being confronted with certain issues in my life where I was being confronted a little bit about how much I drank and so forth, and the frequency, I would immediately go into my head and try to justify why I was trying to escape. I would try to justify my twin brother was killed. Who are you to tell me how to handle this? Who are you to tell me how to feel? You have no idea. And so there's this constant desire for justification, because I felt like I was being attacked, whether that was the intent or not. That was how it was received. And so I feel like if addictions and substance abuses are addressed, excuse me, addressed in a more compassionate, understanding mindset, that someone's going to be far more willing to take those first steps. I feel like, at least for myself, when I've tried to kick bad habits, for example, there's a point where I kind of got heavy. Like I said, there was a point where I used food as an escapism after my brother. I didn't really keep track of what I was doing, and I put on like 30 or 40 pounds. And so when I went to lose some weight, one of the things I realized was that I was far more effective and far more, I'd say, consistent with improving my eating habits when I allowed myself to fudge up every now and then. It was just one of those things, and I don't necessarily think that route is best for everyone. Some people really can't, put their feet in the water, so to speak. They're either all in or all out. So if that's your case, then you definitely need to evaluate that. But for myself, what worked was me realizing that improving, 75% of what I was doing would show great results, and that sense of being able to give in some guilty indulgences and have a little treat every now and then. Maybe have a couple of beers or have a donut on the weekend or something. Just kind of that that cheat day concept really helped me, because it gave me a sense of that I really don't think that when it comes to eating better, that eating say mouse-sized portions or salads completely is really effective, because you're constantly denying any type of gratification. You're constantly denying any type of release, so to speak. And so I think, allowing yourself to kind of cut loose a little bit is far more effective. I feel like a lot of the times when you do those all in, all out diets, or all in, all out with other types of addictions and so forth, you go strict for a while, and you've got, so many days, and then there's that day you snap and you kind of give in a little bit, and you have such remorse and guilt for that you just go completely nuts. That, instead of eating one donut, you eat a box of donuts. Instead of having one or two beers, you have several cases of beers. You almost self-loathe so much because you caved, which, I think to a certain degree it's an impossible feat to expect perfection. And like I said, there's some people that they just really need to have that complete depravity, otherwise they'll crumble. But for myself, that's one thing I found. There's many years where I smoked cigarettes, and that was one of the things that really helped me. Was I tried to quit smoking several times, and I'd go a few days, I might make a week or whatever, but I inevitably caved in. Life is just generally stressful, and so there's just that point of immediate gratification, and once you slip, you fall. But that's one thing I realized, was that there was a point where I was able to quit for more than a year. And really the big thing that helped me was, again, like I said, I allowed myself to cheat, so to speak. I allowed myself to have a cigarette every now and then. And it's that sense of something good is coming down the road that made all those other days really kind of effortless. There was a point how I did it was, I allowed myself to have a cigarette or two on the 4th of July. We're at a barbecue, lots of socializing, lots of cutting loose and carefree attitude. Lots of that sense of just live in the moment. Same thing with like Christmas. Same thing with New Year's. It was just a sense of like you can't be on point every single day of your life. And so by allowing myself to give into my desires here and there, I was able to really take control. And so with my dieting, I ended up dropping, I think it was like 45 or 50 pounds. And then again with the cigarettes, I was able to go more than a year without having a cigarette. Or not having a cigarette, but a year without really smoking. Like I said, I'd have maybe one cigarette every couple of months. It was very, very casual. And because of that, like I said, I was able to take control more of my life. And that sense of taking control just took that much more pressure off my shoulders, to where I could continue to improve. And so for me, I guess I just want people to realize when they're going through tough struggles that they're going to be tempted, and it's something sinister, but they're going to just constantly be tempted to just kind of cave into that escapism. And like I said, nothing wrong with that. You just need to be vigilant that it doesn't take control of your life. It doesn't take precedence over important moments in your life. There's always going to be those kind of quiet moments in our week or whatever where we can give in a little bit. But if we don't keep it in check and we don't keep track of our frequency, that's really when we start to develop a problem. And like I said, in a damaged state of mind, once you realize you have a problem, it's extremely tough to own up to it. It's extremely tough. You end up, a lot of times, at least for myself, you end up trying to justify it, which just makes it that much harder to defeat. And so I just really want people to be vigilant with that issue, so that they can self-improve and not let their problems and their pain amount to even more pain. But yeah, so again, lots to talk about, but I just want to keep at it as frequently as I can, and just talk more and more about my own personal experiences and what I've discovered, and hope that I can help somebody, help as many people as I can. So with that, good luck and good night.